Hello again, class. Welcome back to Japanese 1. Today we're going to be going over hiragana, Japanese's alphabet. Hope you all have your pens and pencils ready. Let's get started. Now, a few things to remember before we dive right in about hiragana. Japanese is not a Romance language, so it uses an alphabet completely different from what you're going to be used to. As a matter of fact, Japanese actually has 3 different alphabets: hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Today, we're just going to be going over the first, hiragana. Now, one term we will be throwing around is romaji. If you turn your attention right up here, you'll see an example of hiragana spelling out the word hiragana. Above it, you'll see the Roman letters that denote what sound each of these hiragana are making. One other thing to note, handwriting is going to be very important whenever you're writing down Japanese words or characters. So I would recommend using a mechanical pencil or a fine-tipped pen when writing these. Now over here to the right, you're going to see a big graph. This is every single hiragana character. If you want to take a moment to write it down, feel free to pause the video. Otherwise, I will have the PowerPoint up online later on, so you can just pull that up and use this chart at your leisure. Now, we're going to go over each individual part in just a moment, but one thing to keep in mind here is how graph-like this alphabet actually is. What you have is 5 rows, each using one of the different vowels: A, I, U, E, and O. In this context, though, it is pronounced A, I, U, A, and O. And then as you go down, you have a consonant. And each consonant is paired up with one of the vowels: K for ka, S for sa, T for ta, and you just keep going on your way down. Now, hiragana is the basic alphabet. It is the one you are going to see most often and use most often. Now, the first part of the hiragana alphabet are the monographs. As we've said before, there are 5 vowels: A, I, U, A, and O, and then 1 consonant, just the N here. Every other character in Japanese is going to include a consonant and vowel combo. So ka, ki, ku, ke, and ko. Now, each and every single one of these characters is generally speaking, going to carry this exact same sound. So when you see K, it's going to sound like K. The only real exception to that is right down here, wo. Now, there are actually a couple exceptions despite what I said. Whenever you use a single character as a participle, you'll find later on that they do generally make sounds different than that. But the reason why wo stands out is because wo is you will almost never see this character used in an actual sentence. It will almost always be used as a participle. So you will almost always be pronouncing this as just O instead of wo. Now, there are a total of 46 characters here in total. These are the 46 characters you are going to have to learn how to write. The rest of the alphabet is based on these 46 characters. second part of the alphabet, the diacritics. Now, it's not too important for you to remember the exact terminology for these group of letters. At the end of the day, it is just one singular alphabet. One thing you might notice right away is that these symbols look an awful lot like the monographs that we went over, because they are. All you do is add a quotation mark right here to the consonant, and that changes the consonant right here. So K turns into G, so instead of ka, it's ga. S turns to Z, so it's za instead of sa. T changes to D, so you have da instead of ta. H to B, so ba instead of ha. And at the very bottom here, you will notice an exception, where you just add a circle instead of the quotation marks, and that changes the H to a P, so pa instead of ha. Now, one thing you might have also noticed right here, these are grayed out. That's because when you add a quotation marks to this symbol, the chi, it changes to a G instead, which is the exact same sound as the one right above it, the G. Because of that, these two symbols right here, the chi changing to G and the tsu changing to the zu, are almost never used. Very rarely will you see them, so quite often these will just be excluded entirely. If you ever hear the sound G with a J, it will 99.9% of the time be this one right here. Same thing with zu. Now here we have the diagraphs. What we have here is for every single character that ends in I. You can drop the I and introduce one of the Y characters, a small Y character to be exact, thus changing the ki into kya, or Q, or kyo. You can only do this for the characters that end in I. Now, the one exception to this is with the G. Instead of dropping the I and adding the YA or YU or YO, you take away the Y in general. So you have Ja, Ju, and Jo. This is where we get our J sounds. Now, a few other rules to keep in mind. These are going to be a little dense, but we'll pick them up as we go along. You will see a tsu. This is the tsu symbol. It can also be used to create a hard consonant in a word. So, we have the word saka. It's just S-A-K-A. If we add the tsu in between there before the K, that creates a hard K sound. So instead of saka, it's saka, like so. Now the small tsu cannot be used for any N characters, like na, ni, nu, ne, or no. For those, we put an N there instead. So mina is just mina, and minya is like so. Finally, to make a long vowel, we add the appropriate vowel after the character. So, like oka is OKA. If you want oka, OKAA, you just add an A after this KA here. One notable exception to this is if you have a consonant character that ends in O, you want to put a U after it instead. So instead of Ohio, right down here you have the Y-O and U. So it has that hard O sound. If you want to spell it out though, because it's very kind of difficult to actually type out the long O there, you would still spell it as O-H-A-Y-O-U. And that is a brief overview of the hiragana. Feel free to replay this video, pause it when you need to copy down your characters. Be sure to practice your alphabet. This is most likely the most important lesson you'll need to know. It is what we're going to base all of our future lessons on.